Welcome back to episode 3 of World in Flames Global War. Today I'll be doing the January-February of 1940 turn. So just to give a recap of where we're at. So right now Germany is at war with France and the Commonwealth. That's the only country over here at war with anybody right now. The Netherlands, Belgium, they've both been conquered. Hungary and Bulgaria are both aligned to Germany as well. Soviet Union has claimed Bessarabia, and that's where we're at over here on the European map. So I've been thinking about it, and I think I'm going to change up what I'm doing with Italy. And I know that this is really not efficient in terms of where they've already moved their troops, but I don't know. I think they could probably take Egypt down here with enough concentration of force, but I'm thinking a more interesting game might be to go try to take Spain and then Gibraltar. And I don't think that. So just having read the campaign booklet, it seems like that's something that happens once in a while within the game. But I think I might try to go do that. I think that might be interesting to come over here and try. And I think to do that, Italy is going to get involved in the war with France, and basically I need to take the units that are over here right now in Libya, and I need to move a lot of them back over towards Europe, which is inefficient, but I think that's what's going to happen. So it might not be this turn, but might set myself up here for either a March or May of 1940 declaration of war on France and into Spain by Italy. The goal will be to get Italy more resources. So right now they actually have, by my count, they have 11 factories, but only 8 resources coming in, and some of those are from the U.S. So what they really need to acquire are resources. Spain has those. They can align Spain, they being the Axis, if they hold Gibraltar. But I think the Commonwealth is going to have Gibraltar pretty well defended, and I think the Italians are just going to try to move through southern France and into Spain to take the resources that Spain has. In addition to this plan, I'm considering not going the Vichy route. I'm not really sure if that's something that's ever done strategically. There are certainly a lot of benefits to forming Vichy. A lot of the French territories around the world would also become Vichy, and Japan gets to try to align Madagascar and French Indochina. But on the other side of that, if I don't go that route and just go to conquer France's home country just outright, Italy could take the southern part, the part that would normally be Vichy, right away, get their resources, get that factory, and then move on to Spain. So I think, I don't know how this is all going to go. I might be talking all of this and they might completely fail, and none of this might happen. But I think the goal is going to be for Germany to push into northern France, Italy to push into southern France, and then both of them go down into Spain, but with Germany making sure that Italy controls all of the hexes that they need to for resources and factory production. Because Germany's got plenty of resources and factories. I mean, more is always better, but if they want to get Italy into the game, I think getting those resources in Spain and southern France would be helpful. And then over here in Asia, I think Japan's going to have a pretty powerful turn again this turn. I think they're going to make some more headway into China. When I'm playing the China turns here, I'm really going to try to just defend as best as I can, try to position as best as I can. They do have a few units coming in, they being China, this turn, so that might help. And then the idea for Japan will be to either conquer China or weaken them enough that they don't pose much of a threat to Japan, and then move out into the Pacific Islands from there. The Commonwealth does have a unit here. Its goal is to move to Singapore to fortify that. Alternatively, it might be used to go take care of that partisan in India at the meantime. I don't think, just as the Commonwealth player, I don't think Japan is quite ready to declare war on the Commonwealth yet. It seems like there's another turn or two fighting against China. The first thing I need to do, because we're moving years into 1940, is to update all of the force pools, so I'll go ahead and do that now. So the units here along the border of the map are the reinforcements for the turn. The Axis, the only ones they have are some militia coming into Japan. The Commonwealth has a lot of territorials coming out, and a few more infantry for France, United States, and China, and one plane there for France. In the lending phase, the USA is going to give two resources, one oil and one standard resource to France, and I think I've got the convoys available to be able to move that over, assuming France is still able to receive them at the end of the turn. Next will be initiative. Green will be Axis, and red will be allies. Both get a 10. Wow. So Axis are at +1, so they will go first. They will have the first impulse. And we'll roll for weather. So the last weather from the last turn was a 1, so there's no modifier to this. Roll a 3. So in January, February, that's storms in the Arctic and rainy in the North Temperate and South Monsoon. Alright, so starting with Axis, I'll go with Italy first. They're going to do a naval move. They're going to move the 2 units that are currently in this port. It's a headquarters and a mechanized unit. They're going to hop aboard these ships, and they're going to head over to the Italian coast sea area with them. Going to move this 4-5 in Rome over to, yep, there's a city there. Next up are land moves. They get 3 of them. So this unit is going to move here, this one's here, and this one here. And lastly, I'm going to do some aircraft rebasing. This plane and this plane are going to move over to the west and then eventually up north into Italy. And I might end up moving a plane that's currently on Sicily as well. Japan's doing a combined action. First is naval move. I'm going to move 3 transports here, just moving them out into the China Sea region for future resource movement. And I'm also taking this 5-3 that's in Osaka with the amphib, and they're going to move on over to Canton here. So I need to flip him over. I've got 1 rail movement. It's off screen at the moment up here. It's a cavalry. He's going to move down to this HQ unit here. A few land moves. I'm going to move this HQ here so that he's on this rail line. I'm going to move this marine unit here. And then moving on to land combat. So I'm going to attack this hex with all of the units here, and including that plane and this plane here. So first up is the air combat in that hex before they contribute any factors to the ground battle. So these 2 are going to be bomber units. They're going to be trying to add combat factors to that combat. And the Chinese unit is going to be a fighter trying to shoot down those planes. This is basically the same thing that happened in the last turn, so we'll see if it ends up any different. China will be the first one to roll, so they're both at 2, so the overall combat modifier here is 0. Here's the roll. 20. Alright, so that's going to destroy Japan's front bomber here. That's a pretty big loss for Japan. Japan will roll. They get a 12, which will do nothing because there are no bombers on this side. Yeah, I think Japan's going to take the risk and keep moving forward. This time it'll be +1 for China and -1 for Japan. So here's the Chinese roll. It is a 16. Yep, so that's another Japanese plane loss. But before that goes, they do get to roll. And they get an 18. So 18 on -1 is the defender destroys own fighter bomber. So the Chinese also just lost their plane. So where there once were 3 airplanes, there are now none. I don't know who that benefits more. Well, I think that benefits China more. Because now they don't have any of the Japanese bombers in the area. So I think that fighter probably did what it needed to do there. Alright, that was a pretty big loss for Japan. So, for Japan, hopefully that's not going to be too devastating moving forward. They're going to probably need to build some more airplanes coming up next. So if nothing else, what China has just done is caused Japan to probably spend some production points in airplanes next turn. But the combat will continue on here, and with all of the modifiers, the dice roll modifier here is plus 14 for Japan. So here we'll roll combat. I get a 14. So 14 plus 14 is 28. That's off the chart. And I forgot to mention, but I was using HQ support here with that HQ. So this unit is lost, and I'll figure out which Japanese troops to move in here. So here's what that looks like afterwards. I moved in 2 units up to here, a 4-3 and a 6-2. I left the Marine unit here and just leaving them near the coast because they're probably not going to stay around forever. Those are the units I'll be using to capture some of the islands with. I did put this Marine this far in, but he's probably going to start turning around. But now what I've done is I've connected this railroad here. So this resource and this resource here in this hex are available for Japan. They can't bring them home quite yet. I did move these 3 out here during the naval move. During the next naval move, I will bring 3 more ships out to the South China Sea. They only need 2, but I'm moving 3 just for maybe some future proofing. So Japan will be able to bring in 2 more resources next turn to their factories, and have just denied 1 to China. And that is it for the Japanese turn. I went ahead and moved Germany's troops. They did a land action. So with Germany right now, what they really should be doing is doing probably a naval action with the weather, and because there are a lot of unprotected Commonwealth convoy points out in the ocean. But I attribute that to the fact that I still don't really know how to best defend the transports. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give them a pass 1 more turn here, and just do a land action with Germany, get into position, and then on the next turn for the Allies, what I need to do for the Commonwealth is get defense out there for the convoy points, and do it right this time, so that they stick around over the course of the next turn. So because a lot of them return to the base at the end of the turn. So I didn't plan for that very well, just because I don't have a whole lot of experience with it. So I'm going to, as Germany, give them 1 more turn to get their stuff in order before going out there with the submarines and the Atlantic Fleet for Germany and doing convoy raiding. So that's why I'm doing that. So I guess in summary what I'm saying is I think really what Germany should probably be doing right now is a naval move to go do a lot of convoy hunting. Instead, I'm doing a land move, and I'm getting land troops a little bit more into position along the border with France. I've tried to introduce rules as I go, and by that I mean I knew that there was such a thing as offensive points, and I've read up on them, but I haven't really looked at using them yet, just to not overload myself with different things that I need to be thinking about. But I think looking at the situation here, it's going to be time to do that the next time the weather is good for Germany. So getting things into position so that I can best utilize those offensive points when it comes time is the plan right now. And so that is it for the Axis. We'll move on to the Allies' first impulse. Commonwealth is doing a naval action, so I decided to split up the home fleet into 3 different ones, and I've got them over on the board off screen here. This is basically a battleship fleet here, and it's going to sit in the North Sea in an attempt to intercept anything moving out from Germany. So with that battleship fleet, I also did add some cruisers in there, and then the rest of the cruisers and carriers have been split up between Home and Force H here. And I think they're going to basically alternate taking turns between the 0 and the 1 box. Over here in the Bay of Biscay, there's a lot of transports there that are very important to get to the Commonwealth, so I'm going to put a large force there. A few of them did move out into the North Atlantic. Just some other ships I had around the Commonwealth have moved out to the North Atlantic. Moved a lot of the Mediterranean fleet out to Cape St. Vincent. So right now we're not at war with Italy and don't expect to be soon, so I've left the Mediterranean itself somewhat empty. I did move another garrison unit out to Gibraltar from the Commonwealth. And over here in the Asian Pacific maps, I moved these ships here from the Australian East Coast just out here into the Timor Sea. I think they're probably going to rebase somewhere a little bit further west. And then the fleet over here, I think that's on camera. There's another fleet in the South China Sea with my transport here. The transport's going to end up in Singapore, but my goal is to do a land action next time to debark that troop into Singapore, and then move the transport down into Australia so that I can pick up a troop next turn as well from there. So with that, that's the Commonwealth turn. Again, naval action. They moved out and are hopefully doing a better job now of protecting their convoy points. France is taking a small land action. They moved their Moroccan unit here to the Maginot Line. And also there was a militia unit in Marseille that moved up via train up to this location here, so it's flipped over. France does notice that the Italians are moving troops back to Italy, so they do expect that they'll probably be attacked at some point here. But they also feel pretty confident in their mountain defenses right now. They still think the more pressing issue is up north with Germany. Soviet Union is doing a combined action. They railed in one more Siberian unit up here and moved the unit that was there down to here. And I don't know if this is the right decision or not, but I'm going to do it. They're moving into Lithuania, which will mean that all three of these countries here are now aligned to the Soviet Union. And we need to roll a dice for a U.S. entry check. I get a 9, so nothing happens with that. One correction, I said that they're aligned, they're actually conquered. So those three are now conquered by the USSR. The USA has done their combined action and moved MacArthur out of the Philippines and over towards Hawaii. They also moved a 5-1 garrison that was over in San Diego over to Hawaii as well. And China's doing a land action where they have moved, they've moved the troops that are here over to the left. The one that was here moved over to the left. So a few of them are flipped over due to terrain and weather, but I think it's going to be better for them to consolidate into fewer hexes with more combat factors and just abandon this mountain here. I don't know. Again, I don't know if that's the right call or not, but it seems like consolidating troops into as defensible as a location as possible. I know this is not a mountain. There is a factory here, and that factory is going to be really important for China to keep. So I think more units is better for them. Also moved this unit just along the road here, just trying to get closer into the front line. Moving to the Axis impulse, and we'll roll for weather. There's no modifier. 7. 7 is snow and storms in most of the world. The only area that's really going to be good weather is the North Monsoon. And also the impulse track will move 3 times each time I roll, or each time the impulse ends. I'll start with Italy. These 2 units are going to debark at sea into Genoa because it's raining or storming. They will flip over based on the terrain movement cost there. The transports they were on also flip over. And then I'm going to rebase 1 airplane. It can make it all the way up to Rome. Alright, Japan. I'm going to move this they're doing a combined action, moving this transport over here to Hiroshima. Next up are land moves. I need to be careful here because of the weather, I do have some things that are currently out of supply. Most notably this stack here. The nearest HQ is right here. But I'm actually going to move this HQ here. And again, because of the weather, he's going to flip over. That's 1 land move. Now this is in supply, but it doesn't really matter. I'm going to start by moving this one. He's going to go inward here. He'll flip over because he doesn't have enough movement points to get into the mountains. And same with this unit here. So I'm going to move here. And I'm borrowing my control tokens from War Room, so I'm just going to put this here to note that that's Japanese controlled, even though I don't have a unit there. And then I'm also going to rebase this airplane just a little bit over to here. And I think that'll do it for Japan. I think Germany will just do a land action. Again, I know I keep saying I'm going to get the boats involved, but I think the Commonwealth put out enough deterrent into the North Sea and the Bay of Biscay. I don't think it's worth it to risk anything at the moment. I don't know if things will change moving forward. I suspect once I get Italy involved, there might be a need for more Commonwealth presence down in the Mediterranean. And so that might be a little bit better time to start. But last turn, I tried moving the German fleet into the North Sea just to try to pick off some of the Dutch ships. But now the Commonwealth has put out a whole lot of battleships out there, so I don't think that battle would go quite as well. And I've got 2 subs that could commit out to the Bay of Biscay, but there's a lot of a naval presence out there as well, and the weather does not prevent naval air combat, and there are carriers out there, so I think I'm just going to skip that for now and do some land moves. Just rearrange a few more troops. I think this HQ is going to move that way. These troops are going to fill in along the border here. And I think that's going to be about it. It's snowing right now in this area, so I don't think any combats are probably going to happen this turn. And here's what it looks like after that. On to the Allied Impulse. Commonwealth first. So they will do a combined action. They don't have a whole lot to do, so I'll just do the combined action. This unit is going to move here, but they do have to flip over because of the weather. So that's how that ends up. Over here, this unit is going to debark into Singapore, and I don't think they have to flip over. The weather there is fine. This transport. Oh, and I forgot to mention these should be in the 1 box. That's where I meant to put them before. So I made a mistake before. I'm retroactively putting them here. It's fine. But they're in the 1 box, but this will flip over because of that debark. And that is it for Commonwealth. And I think with that, everybody else is going to pass. France is as defended as they're going to get right now. The U.S. doesn't have anything to do at the moment. The Soviet Union doesn't have anything to do this turn. And I think China's in as good of a spot as they can be as well. So I think they're going to pass just to add 1 to the dice roll. I think really the goal of the Allies right now is to move along as quickly as possible, just to get the U.S. involved as quickly as possible. The fewer turns there are now, before we keep adding U.S. entry chips each turn, I think the Allies' main goal at the moment is to get the U.S. involved as quickly as possible. So every turn the Axis has here early in the game is worse. So the Allies really just want to push through, get U.S. entry chips into the pool, and just move through these early years as quickly as possible. So everybody else is going to pass. So on a 3 or lower, the turn will end. 4. So the turn does not end. We will move to here, and that means we roll for weather. 3, well, okay, it was a 3. +1 for the previous weather, so that's a 4. So we've got snow and storms in the Arctic and North Temperate, but it is fair again in the Mediterranean. So the weather actually got worse along most of the border with Germany and France, with parts of the Italian-French border, and even over here with Japan and China. The Axis has a lot of flipped over units right now. There's not a whole lot they could do. They could reorganize possibly with some HQs, but the weather's just not great. The monsoon down here is pretty good. It's fair weather, but the hex here is storm. This hex here could be attacked into, but I've got flipped over units here, so they can't support right now. So I think the only thing the Axis are going to do this turn, Japan is going to move this 1 unit here up 1 spot. Real exciting. Otherwise, I think that is everything for the Axis this turn. So having said that, Germany and Italy are still going to take empty combined actions because they would like it if the Allies had 1 more impulse. If there is no more impulse after this, then this initiative marker moves over to the right one. So on a 5 or less, the turn will end. 8. So it will be an Allied turn. And I'll check. I think it moves 2 based on the weather. I'll verify that. Alright, Allies, seeing that the Axis want the turn to end, they would like the Axis to have another impulse at this point because they do want the initiative marker to move over to the right. So everybody's doing a combined action, but there's only going to be 2 moves that happen because, again, the weather's bad everywhere and there's just not much to do this turn. So the Commonwealth is going to rail move this unit here in Sydney over to Perth. And then over here, going to move this transport that is in the Hawaiian Islands back towards San Diego. I'll check to see if it has range to make it all the way there. And then I'll go ahead and disembark MacArthur here into Hawaii. Alright, on a 7 or lower, the turn ends. 9. So the Axis will get a turn. And similar to last time, Axis will take a bunch of empty combined actions. So on an 8 or less, the turn will end. 1. So the turn is over. The Axis had the last impulse, so this will move over. Oh, and I did forget to roll for weather, so let's do that now. 7. So that's 7 plus 1 for the modifier on the 4 to 8. This will matter for the modifier at the beginning of the next turn. Alright, first up for the end of the turn are partisans. 6. Greece, UK, Finland, Iraq, Afghanistan, Canada, South America, Japan, and Malaya. So that'll be Malaya. Roll a 5. So that will be okay, they don't have any partisans there. I placed the entry chits around the board on the USSR-German border and the Japanese USSR border. I pulled one chit for the US pool here for Japan, just to even them up so that they both have 3 chits in it now. I'm going to choose option 11, US East Coast Escorts, which is a German-Italian entry pool option. On a 7 or less, one of the entry chips will move over to the tension pool. 5. So randomizing between the 3, on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, it'll move over. Get an 8, so that'll move the 2 over to the tension pool. Everything has returned to base, and everything has flipped over. Here's what I'm building for the Allies. China's building some infantry, and they had 1 build point left over. France is also going to build some pretty elite infantry. These were all pulled randomly out of their force pools, but most of their force pools only have 1, maybe 2 units in them right now anyway. Soviet Union is building some infantry. The United States is building all of their new battleships to hopefully have them in 2 years' time. And the Commonwealth is building this one and finishing the construction of these 2. They picked a bomber out of the force pool for that randomly, and then 2 more convoy points. And for the Axis production, Japan's building some ships, a bomber to replace the ones that were lost in China, and they're going to build some operations points. Germany is trying to get some, maybe not dominance in the sea areas, but just a little bit more presence there with the naval bombers and the submarines, and then 1 mechanized unit as well. And the Italians are also going to continue their Mediterranean aspirations with the amphibious transport and the carrier. So that concludes January, February of 1940. Not a whole lot happened this turn. Had some bad weather really throughout the entire turn, which prevented the German advance. So I think as soon as the weather turns a little bit more favorable, I realize I had been saying offensive point or operations points, but they're actually offensive points. I think when the weather turns better, Germany is going to use some offensive points and really just smash through the line. I don't know that there's a whole lot France and the Commonwealth are going to be able to do about that. But yeah, so here's what it currently looks like. Here's the European side of the map. I think my inexperience is really starting to show at this point. I think I've messed a few things up, especially in terms of naval usage. I'm just not getting them involved nearly as much as I think I probably should be. I also realized I haven't mined the Norwegian coast yet, which I think is probably something that happens early. So I need to look at that next turn. Italy, I don't know what to do with Italy right now. I keep moving troops back and forth. I think they're probably going to end up attacking France as soon as the weather looks okay, and they get their troops that are in Libya are going to come back next turn, and I think they'll start attacking France. So we'll see if I can improve my strategic ability here in the next turn. It's tough because the part of me that's playing as Commonwealth wants to keep all of those convoys safe out there. But the part of me that's playing Germany wants to go and destroy them. So I'm trying not to give it any kind of bias in my mind, but I'm concerned that I might be going a little easy on the naval battles against the Allies, just because the part of me that's playing allies wants them to be protected out there. And it also feels like the Axis is doing really well right now, which I realize kind of it's how it's supposed to feel at the moment. So I think I need to get the naval units more involved going forward. And then over here in Asia, Japan just looks unstoppable at the moment. I'm not really sure. I don't think it's going to take too many more turns of good weather until they... I don't know if they're going to be able to conquer China quickly just because of how far away some of the factories are into the mountains. But I just don't see... I don't see how they are not going to be able to keep moving forward here at the pace that they've been moving. The HQs are in position to continue to provide supply. I think Japan's probably going to use offensive points the next time weather looks good. I would expect to see them continue to advance, and I'm not sure, as the Allied player, what to do about that. There's no ports right now that China can get supplies through, and the Burma Road is also blocked off from the factories in the interior of China by that Japanese Marine unit there, that 4-4 Marine unit. So it remains to be seen how this starts to improve for China. Obviously, if the Commonwealth or the U.S. could put some more pressure on Japan, but there's really not much the U.S. can do at all, except through their entry actions. And Commonwealth doesn't really want to declare war on Japan, even though it would eliminate the surprise impulse, because, again, they just really need the U.S. to get involved, and that would not help that case. And then the other thing I've been considering is just based on how well Japan's doing, they might be finished with the war in China in maybe a few turns, at least to the point of being able to turn their attention elsewhere. And at this point, that elsewhere, really, it almost could be the border with the Soviet Union and take eventual pressure off of Germany later on. But there's entreaties over there right now for Japan that are defensive, but I know they can flip over to become offensive. I'm not saying that's definitely what's going to happen, but just when I move the troops away from that border, I thought it would benefit both of them reasonably equally, but I think it's definitely benefiting the Soviet Union more that there's really not a whole lot of pressure up on that border. So we'll have to see how that plays out too. It kind of depends on how quickly the U.S. gets in. Obviously, Japan's not going to want to have a fight with the Soviet Union and the U.S. and any kind of Commonwealth resistance as well. With that, thank you for watching, and I'll be back for the March-April turn.